now. All right. Thank you guys for joining us. Welcome to our Lunch and Learn. My apologies. Clearly, I haven't done this for a while. Our Lunch and Learn. We have been trying to do these every month to share information that we feel that people in our community need. This month, I have been trying to put this one together for some time. But this month, we are talking about peace orders, protective orders, and extreme risk protective orders. I believe that last one is a relatively new one, and I just want to make sure that people know that that's out there. Today with me, we've had a little bit change of schedule. Joining me is Dr. Delaine Smith-Clark. She is the Victim Services Coordinator at the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Center, which is DVSAC, right? DVSAC, at the University of Maryland Medical Center at Capital Regional Health, which is the one that is in Largo, I think is the city. And then we have my new addition is Sharon DiMaggio. She's at Calvert County Sheriff's Office, Calvert County Sheriff's Office. And then Chief Carl Schinner, he is Chief of Police at the town of Plata and is the current president of the Maryland Chief of Police Association. So thank you guys for joining me. What prompted me to really want to expand on people's knowledge of protective orders was an article that I sent in our conversations. And I don't know if you guys saw this. It happened in DC. This lady had been really struggling to combat domestic violence in her home, and she finally decided to take a stance. She went out, she got a protective order. Unfortunately, the other person had a handgun, and she was actually murdered that day on her way home. And it shook me. It shook me when I read it. It's hard to hear that kind of news when, you know, there's so many things out there. And unfortunately, it is a case, and it is reality. So before I get too deep into our conversation, I wanted you guys to have an opportunity to introduce yourselves as well. I will start with Sharon because she's, for my screen, she's to my left, and then we can go Delaine and then Chief. Sharon?
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you including me today. I'm Sharon DiMaggio with the Calvert County Sheriff's Office. I'm the Orders of Protection and Victim Services Coordinator. And March will be 14 years. I've been here with Calvert County Sheriff's Office. And this is such an important topic. There were 56 lives lost in 2022. And in February, we'll find out what the numbers were for 2023. And 30 children were left behind in 2022. So this is definitely the topic we need to talk about. And thank you for including me today.
Thanks, Sharon. Delaine? Oh, you're on mute, Delaine.
My name is Delaine Smith-Clark, and I'm the Victim Services Coordinator at the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Center, DVSAC, and the University of Maryland Capital Region Health Hospital. I've been here 16 years, and as Sharon already mentioned, this is a very important topic. We are still trying to learn all of the processes and how people can particularly get a protective order. And I spoke with Sandra earlier on, we heard that you could get a protective order. Advocates can now do it without going to the commissioner's office. So I want to get some more information on that. So I think this is a very important topic.
Thanks, Delaine.
Thank you.
Chief Carl?
Yeah, good morning. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Carl Schinner. I'm the Chief of Police in La Plata, Maryland. I've been in law enforcement for 37 years. My first 27, I worked in the city of Greenbelt, retired as a captain. I'm currently the president of the Maryland Chiefs of Police Association, and I welcome the opportunity to participate in this lunch and learn. Domestic violence is something that's police officers deal with every day, and making sure we get it right and make sure we make the right recommendations is extremely important.
Thanks so much, Chief. So I call him Chief just because, you know, I always call him Chief. So anyway, so back into this article, this woman, she got this protective order this happened in DC. So we can also talk about, what rules are different if we know if they're different in DC. We have these neighboring, we are the DMV, so sometimes it helps us to know the rules for each city or state that's near us. But I guess first jump off point is a peace order, protective order, and then the emergency. I always want to say emergency, extreme risk protective order. So my understanding is the peace order is for non-domestic situations, like is that right? Like there's protective orders.
So peace orders, it's usually like your neighbor, someone you don't know well, or like non-related, no intimate partner history. Of course, rape and sexual assault can fall under a protective order by someone that's not related, but that's like one of the few things that would fall. But peace orders are typically like just an acquaintance, a neighbor, a coworker, something like that.
Could that be family members as well, or is that all domestic? Is that all protective orders?
Well, if you're related, it would be a protective order.
Okay, so if you're related, it'd be a protective order, or if you're in a domestic relationship.
Yes, and peace orders could be dating violence, but if there's that intimate component, it could be non-intimate dating, could fall under a peace order.
Oh, okay, so that's confusing. So if you're dating but you don't live together, like what is the rationale of?
A sexual relationship, an intimate relationship,
Okay, would be the protective order.
if you have that. If not, it would be peace.
Okay, that's good to know.
There's
Is it
the dating
easier to
violence.
get one or the other, or does it matter?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Is it easier to get one or the other, or is it about the same process?
It's about the same process. I mean, the protocol, you still have to go in front of the commissioner or the judge. Peace orders, it has to be something that's happened within 30 days, whereas a protective order, there's no limit on that. So that's a big difference.
Yeah.
But it will definitely be one or the other, because sometimes the petitioner will go and not be sure which one they should have. And when they get in front of the judge will dismiss the incorrect order if it was issued incorrectly, and then refile. And if it should have been a protective and it was issued as a peace, filed.
Okay, so they'll kind of help you along the process in case you're like doing the wrong one for each. Okay. Thanks, Sharon. And then the extreme risk protective order was something new to me. So I'm not sure if that's a new thing, but my understanding of the extreme risk protective order is if someone feels that they are in danger. I think the one component that always sticks out to me is that I believe that they take away like weapons from the other person.
I think
Yeah,
you are
that's-
correct on that. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, that's true. One of the things you have to prove with an extreme risk protective order is that the person poses an immediate and present danger of causing personal injury to themselves or to someone else with a firearm. So it is kind of a pretty tight window of the extreme risk protective order, who can file it, and what it can be filed for. But the behavior can be like alarming behavior or alarming statements. They unlawfully possess a firearm. That's one of the qualifiers for it. And it just kind of goes down. But you're looking for somebody who you really believe could use a firearm to harm themselves because of this domestic relationship gone wrong, or whatever it may be, and or they may hurt someone else.
Okay, and is Delaine, did you want to add something to that?
No, I was going to say the same thing. That was my understanding of the extreme protective order.
So is this a new thing? Is this a new type of protective order?
I know last year we had a training here for our advocates, and we had the sheriff department to come and do that training for protective orders. Now, I don't know how long that's been out, far as a time limit, but she brought it to us last year.
I believe it's been since 2018.
Yeah.
The extreme risk protective order, it's really interesting. I wish it had been called the red flag order, because you usually hear it mentioned as being related to the red flag law, because people do get confused of who should be filing it. Some of the differences with the extreme risk order, it can be filed against a juvenile. A couple other differences is that it's confidential. It won't be on Maryland Judiciary Case Search. And it's not always domestic related. It could prevent, it's some of the way it's looked at as being a tool is suicide prevention. So there may be no domestic violence related scenario, also mass shooting prevention. So that's really important for people to know, and where an extreme risk protective order would actually benefit a domestic violence victim would be, so with protective orders, temporaries, the judge may issue surrender of firearms, but they may not. All finals, surrender of firearms are issued. However, interim protective orders, they never issue surrender of firearms. So if someone can't file during court hours to go in front of the judge where they could issue the surrender of firearms, they could utilize the extreme risk protective order after hours during the interim phase. So they could collect firearms. And now, of course, law enforcement has discretion. If they show up on scene and there's firearms and they feel there's a threat, they could, take them for safekeeping. But that's really where that domestic violence component would come in with an extreme risk protective order, because the only thing the extreme risk protective order will do is have a surrender of firearms and prevent the respondent from purchasing firearms. There's nothing such as no contact. It's not prohibiting them from going to any addresses. So it's very different.
Yeah, you really need to, if you go the extreme, if you qualify for an extreme risk protective order, I would say almost 100% of the time, you're also going to have to file either for a protective order or a peace order to get maximum protection.
Okay, so it shouldn't necessarily, in domestic situations, that protective order, the extreme risk, should not is not a standalone. It should be paired with one of the other respective protective orders.
Well, it can be, and if somebody really feels threatened by it, and it may not be if the person's suicidal, but if they're a threat to someone else, you would want that peace or protective order to go along with it. One of the other things that with the extreme risk protective orders is it's a pretty wide group of people who can apply for one. If they see something going on, it can be a spouse, a cohabitant, another relative by blood or adoption, a dating or intimate partner, but a police officer who can go and say, hey, I think something is wrong here. I think we really need to step in. And then a medical professional can file for them, social workers. There's a lot of people who can go and file for an extreme risk protective order. That's
great. I mean, that's great. And I think that was one of the new things that I had only learned. I mean, I thank goodness have not had to do that. I'm sure Delaine has a lot more experience in this aspect. And so when her and I were chatting, it's always so interesting what you learn from other people. But this was a conversation that I was having in my home with my husband. And I think that I was talking to Kurt, and then my husband interjected. Kurt is our executive director. He's not able to be with us today, but my husband had said something, and anyway, started an entire conversation. And then I was like, well, clearly, if I didn't know, considering where I work and who I have contact with, I'm not assuming that people out there would know as well. So thank you guys for that information. So it includes the removal of firearms. Do you guys know about DC and our surrounding neighboring states? Like if they have something similar in place?
There's
all our surroundings. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you can go ahead, please.
Say all our surrounding states have it except Pennsylvania. DC, Delaware, and Virginia all have some sort of either, as was mentioned, red flag or extreme risk protective order.
Okay, so Pennsylvania behind on the times there.
And something I'd like to add regarding the extreme risk protective orders is that an emergency evaluation, a mental health emergency evaluation, can also be petitioned for at the same time of filing for the extreme risk order.
Okay. All right. So that's for the person that has the firearm or is doing possible harm, right? Okay. Anything to add on this one before I move to the next question?
I did look US wide, and it looks like there's approximately, I saw two different reports, but one said 21 states in the United States have the extreme risk orders at this time. And there's a really helpful website that you could actually go to, and you could click on each state and see how they vary and how they're similar. And it's the Bloomberg American Health Initiative website. It's americanhealth.jhu.edu. And it's pretty neat because you can actually look at each state.
Okay, lovely. I love that because, you just never really know, how we can help other people. And I think that, launching these types of videos, even if they're Maryland specific, at least, if you know someone in another state, or if someone in another state is watching this video, that they can check to see if, those same resources are available in their area. And I think that's always our ultimate goal in the long run. So thank you. How do we get them? I know that we touched on it a little bit. How do we get protective orders? Where do we go? Who can help? This is where I was hoping that one of MCVRC's staff was on board to kind of help on this end as far as being a spokesperson for us, because it's my understanding that we don't necessarily focus on protective orders. I know a lot of domestic violence locations do more than we do. If we are working with a victim of domestic violence, sometimes our attorneys will pro bono that, just to kind of be helpful. But I know that you guys can help us because I know you can do it on your own, right? Like you could all of a sudden be like, you know what? I'm going to go do this and go over to like the magistrate's office or something like that.
I'm happy to help with that. So after hours, they can go to the court commissioner in your county. You go to the court commissioner, and
is that the same in all counties? It's always the court commissioner.
In the state of Maryland, you go to the court commissioner, and they can issue an interim, which is valid for 48 hours. It's to be held within 48 hours. Now, of course, if it's a 3-day weekend and you're at the early part of that, it may go a little farther than that. But so after hours would be the court commissioner. During regular business hours could be district or circuit court. However, extreme risk orders have to be filed through, and peace orders during regular business hours through district court. And there's advocates at most district courts. They have an actual advocate that can work with you and help you through the process with the petition. If you have questions, you can also go on Maryland Court's website, and you can electronically fill out petitions. And there's also a court help hotline as well.
So you can do it electronically.
Yeah, so for DVSAC, a lot of our advocates, we would go down with the client to walk them through the process. If we go to Upper Marlboro, I believe the room is 164, something like that. So we would go in and help them fill that out. Of course, they would fill it out, but a lot of times they have questions, because if you don't fill the protective order out correctly, that's when the judge may not approve it. So we try to that's not a good word to use, to try to assist them in using the correct language, making sure you put on there that there is a threat, because if you don't show that, also letting them know if you have children you want to put on there, if you want to get some financial assistance. So that's why a lot of times our advocates will go with them. There's also a helpline for the Maryland courts that they can call if they have questions as well. So we just try to walk them through the process to
And I
just be
think a lot of
support.
people probably need that hand holding, if you will. That kind of stuff is kind of confusing. But so filing online, does it look differently than when you're filing in person? Because if you file in person, do you get it right away? Like if you file online,
So that was the question I was asking you. I know Andorondo is doing that. Apparently, it's a law that was approved. If someone was in the hospital, they would be able to get that done remotely. I just recently had a situation like that for PG County. I did go up and I was able to help the client type it in the system, but there was no way to upload it for it to be remote to get a hearing. So when we called the helpline, they said it wasn't working here in PG County. So I don't know. That was the question you and we were working with when I first met you.
My
Right.
understanding is with the electronic filing, you do go online and request that hearing. And what they do, if there's a judge that can accommodate and do it that same day before the close of business, if it's initiated early enough in the day, that they can schedule it. However, if it's too close to the end of the day, then it would be scheduled for the following day. But being at the sheriff's office, we don't do that. I just participate in different trainings where other facilities have had to initiate it, and the information that's on Maryland judiciary that says that's the process. So you can try to get it same day if it's Monday through Friday, not down to the wire for closing time. And if not, they can schedule it for the next business day, is my understanding.
Sharon, is there a particular link or something that a person would click on to do that? Or a particular sign in?
Sharon has all the answers. Oh, Sharon, you're on mute though. Can't hear your answers.
I apologize. There is a link on Maryland Judiciary, and I would have to bring that up to find that. It's let's see, under orders of protection. And when someone else is talking, I'll look it up and see if I can find that exact link and put it in the chat.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then I definitely want to talk about DVSAC. So I guess let me finish up here as far as filing. So a lot of places will help you. I know that a lot of the domestic violence centers will help people file for protection orders. Peace orders are a little bit different. I don't know of, I know, Sharon said that there's advocates in the court, there's people that'll kind of help you, file those types of things, if you're trying to do it on your own. But a lot of the domestic violence centers and sexual abuse centers, will physically accompany you to help you, do that paperwork. Then you said the interim is for 48 hours. If it's a long weekend, you might get, 72-hour reprieve or something like that, depending. And then after that, you have to go to court, right, to extend your protective order. And then that's good for 1 week. And then you have to go to court again, right? So it's one, I guess, appearance on your own when you're filing the paperwork, and then another one for the 1 week extension, an appearance in court for the 1 week extension, and another. So it's 2 appearances where the person who is the abuser possibly would possibly be in courtroom, right? That's how that looks.
And it really depends, what stage they file it at, whether it's after hours or during regular business hours. Because usually once a respondent is served and they choose to either go into court and represent themselves, or speak on their behalf or not, will determine how long. Sometimes they get extended. Maybe there's a DSS investigation. Maybe there's something job related that may prevent them from going ahead and issuing a final order. But so interims are typically 48 hours, temporary 7 days, but we have seen where they've altered that. If we can't get someone served, the judge can extend protective orders up to 6 months to try to give more time for service. Sometimes they get dismissed for lack of service because people they'll avoid service sometimes, or we just don't know where they are. And then peace orders, there's 30 days. And then protective orders as finals typically are issued for 1 year. They can be issued for 2, depending upon the severity and if there's criminal charges attached. And if they meet a certain criteria, they could be non-expiring. They could become permanent.
Okay. So as far as MCVRC is concerned, we only start getting involved when it is a criminal component. But it doesn't mean that we don't want to share the information, out there. Thank you for that, Sharon. That is great to know. I think it's always so intimidating, I think, for people to make the move against their aggressor when it comes to getting these orders in place. I guess let's hop over to DVSAC. I do want to give Delaine an opportunity to kind of tell us what they do there. I had a great meeting with Delaine not too long ago. It was hot, so it had to be like maybe August or September, maybe. Oh no, it was after gala, so it was probably just a warm day. I just remember it being warm. And I got to see their location. They are located at University of Maryland Medical Center, right there on our Beltway in Largo. But Delaine, go ahead and tell us what you guys do there and how that's a little bit different than maybe some of the other hospitals that are in the area.
So DVSAC, just to give you a brief history, we started back in 1973 as a sexual assault center. In 2010, we became the domestic violence component was added, and the center was then called the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Center. We are a comprehensive rape crisis center for Prince George's County as well as in Maryland. There's no other program like ours in Maryland. And what makes us comprehensive, we have everything under the hospital's umbrella. So we have 24-hour hotlines. We have crisis intervention. We do individual and group counseling. Our forensic nurses are right here. We have a volunteer program where we train volunteers to come in and do some of the things that we do as well as community outreach and education. So we go out and we speak on different topics that's asked by the organizational partner to comment and speak on our services. We provide a whole array of wraparound services. We are involved in a housing program where we can provide housing for 1 year, maybe up to 2, where the participant will pay 30% of the rent and the organization will pay 70%. With our partners, we're able to provide first month's rent and security. Each year we do a very large Christmas drive. We do book bag drives. We have a notary. We do notary. Everything and all of our services are free. So we look at the whole approach when a person comes here to give them the holistic approach to be able to help them to become stable.
Thanks so much, Delaine. It's always so good to hear what's going on at your location and how you're helping people. And just to clarify, you do service anyone from anywhere, right?
So we see anyone. There's all of our service is also non-judgmental. We see LGBTQ, disabled individuals. So no, we don't turn anyone away. LGBTQ, we don't turn anyone away.
Okay. And will you work with all counties? You guys are located in Prince George's, and I know you hop into Anne Arundel, but you'll deal with Calvert, Charles, Howard, all that.
Yes, so we are housed in PG County. Certainly, we take our PG County clients, but we are very community-based. So we do help, even in this housing program that I'm working with now, the subsidy program, a person can move in any county in the state of Maryland. So yes, so we work outside of PG County.
Lovely, love that. And so that's just great to know that there is a little bit more comprehensive, well, not a little bit more, there's a complete comprehensive center that can kind of really dip into some of those things that are needed. I know our hospitals do the best that they can as far as, you know, supporting the things, but I mean, you know, everyone's just so thin, and resources are spread all over. So if there is someone in need, you know, please go visit Delaine. When I went to go visit, they have a great facility. You know, they've got that brand new spanking new hospital, still smells like, you know, carpet and stuff. And Delaine was telling me how things happen, like if you were admitted in the hospital, if you're in the emergency room, and how they'll get notified and really kind of take action very quickly to see if they can help victims that are in the hospital. And so if you're getting checked out, you know, they kind of swoop in and wrap you up with their services and give you all the love and support that you need. And you know, if you're ready to make a move, you know, go visit and see if they can help you out. So great to know that that resource is available. I guess I did want to talk about the next steps after the protective order, after court and all that. I think that one of the big things that really stops people, this is where I'm going to pull Carl right back into this conversation, is people get these protective orders, right? And they're like, it's just a piece of paper. It's just a piece of paper, because what if that person just determined to do what they're going to do? Then what? Then you call the police, right? Chief, can you walk me through some of the steps that people can expect was as far as like enforcing a protective order, some lessons learned maybe?
Sure. In most organizations, police organizations in Maryland that I'm familiar with, there's no discretion when somebody violates a protective order. Officers make an arrest. And in most agencies, if that arrest cannot be made because the person has fled the area or whatever, then an application for charges is turned in. Yeah, and there's lessons learned. We had a case, I guess, last year where someone violated the protective order 9 or 10 times, to where we actually sent communications to the state's attorney's office, who was able to help us merge everything together and then revoke the recognizance of this individual. Hard to believe that over 9 times, I think the highest bond that came down was $1,500. But it was one of those cases that really made the hair stand up on the back of your neck, that something bad could happen if we didn't pay attention and step in. But they're right. It is just a piece of paper, but they should never hesitate to call, because it is our job to go there and make the arrest and take the person into custody and bring them back before the jurist that issued the peace order or the protective order.
Yeah, that's got to be terrifying.
Something I'd like to share about violations and protective orders. It's really difficult because if someone is determined, they're determined. They definitely work for some people. We see it. I mean, they exist for a reason, but they're a tool. You know, they're a tool that work for some and not for others. And that's what's hard, is how to determine that. And I'd like to just give you a little information about when I first started working here at the sheriff's office. I assumed that every resident at a domestic violence shelter would apply for a protective order. I just thought, oh my goodness, if you're in a shelter, you've applied for an order because you're in fear for your life. Until I started going to domestic violence trainings, more and more trainings, and learning more that can be the most dangerous time, is the first 6 weeks after a victim actually leaves a relationship or files any kind of court-related documentation to include a protective order or custody paperwork, divorce paperwork. So that really opened my eyes. You know, I didn't realize that. So that's really important, that for some people, they may know that if they file an order, that someone may follow through with their threats or be in fear that they will. So they may choose not to file an order. But it all comes down to this, whether they file or not, is safety planning. It really does. So whether it's working like Prince George's County, Montgomery County, they have family justice centers. Every county has victim service providers. Some law enforcement agencies have coordinators, is to connect, or even the national network, Maryland network, connect with someone to do that safety planning, because at the end of the day, you have to do it no matter what. Because like you said, it is a piece of paper, and it's really dependent upon that respondent to follow it or not. So just wanted to share that.
I mean, I think that's a lot to think about, Sharon. I mean, you're right. I mean, I think that they always talk about like these changes in relationships that usually like increase domestic, like if domestic violence is going on and something like changes in their life, like, a new baby or, having to move or whatever, that's always like usually a trigger. So I can imagine getting that protective order as being one of those changes that could initiate violence or maybe take it to the next level. So I mean that is definitely an interesting way to look at it, and I'm glad that you shared, those initial thoughts of like, why doesn't everybody that had, I could see why that would be, a thought, and I could see also why it doesn't hold true, and I mean, that's unfortunate. But thank you guys for that. Is there, Chief? Do you think that there's any way that if people are having the violated protective orders, are there certain things that they should be, is there a certain way that they should communicate to, let's say, dispatch when they call 911? Is there certain information they should be relaying to them so that?
Yeah, there is. I think that's a great question. Things we need to know for the responding officers. One of the most important things is, do you think they're armed? Could they have a firearm with them or some other weapon? What are they wearing? What kind of car do they drive? Because as the officers come into the area, they can be looking for that. If they're out stalking and they know the police have been called, they're probably going to leave. So giving us as much information, let us know about the protective order, because communications is going to be looking that up as the officers are en route. And they'll also look up their history to see if they have a history of violence. Kind of following up on something else that was talked about people not putting in for them. At least in my experience as a police officer, I've heard several times, especially with females, that they're afraid that the child will be taken, the respondent will show up at the school, and it could go either way. It could be male or female, but the respondent's going to show up at the school and take the children. And if the order, especially if there's an order out there that protects or gives custody, one of the things that just passed in Annapolis is House Bill 267 that requires a safety plan to be developed by the courts if there's a credible risk of an abduction of a child. And the courts can go as far as issuing a ex parte warrant for the physical custody of the child to protect them until a safety plan can be put into effect. I think that's a great piece for people to know if they're afraid that, hey, the respondent, they've threatened before, they're going to get the kids, they're going to take them away from me, I'll never see them again. Well, now the courts can step in very quickly, and by law, they're commanded to set up some sort of safety plan. And I'm sure that's going to be working with the local police or sheriff's department. And what can we do to make sure this child is not abducted and taken away from the parent who the courts have deemed to have custody?
That's definitely a great point. I think that as a parent, you definitely should be communicating with the schools. If you get a protective order, or if your child is included, because you can include children, right, on some orders, depending on like what the situation was. And if you let the school be aware of that. You know, I mean, I know at least in Charles, I think most of the schools have gone to the we don't buzz you in unless we know why you want to be here kind of situation ever since, you know, all the school shootings have happened. And if you let them know and provide a copy of paperwork, then they can initiate that. You know, I did a special lunch and learn on schools and your rights. It was a little bit different of a feel as far as you know, fighting for rights for your student while they're in school, and knowing that your rights still exist outside of that school and within outside of the confines of what the school wants to do. But I think that, you know, using educating the school on what is going on personally can only benefit you, because at least your child is not being released to someone that they shouldn't be released to. And, you know, things change quickly, and, you know, they have them on that list. Schools naturally put mom and dad on there. I know that from like that's just you know, parents have rights to kids' educational information, unless the courts deem that they do not have access to that information. And so you know, it's super important to get those things in place. I know that a lot of the domestic violence pro bono lawyers that work with centers will help people with their, you know, custody cases and things like that. So definitely something to keep in mind if that's where, you know, people need to go.
On the note of providing copies to the school, it's also important if the order is modified or ends up being expiring, to make sure the schools know also of any modifications or that it's no longer in effect. And you can also provide a copy to your employer, because sometimes domestic violence will show up in the workplace. And that's really important. A lot of mass shooting incidents, the perpetrators do have a history of domestic violence. And also, some agencies have a red flag list that, like in Calvert, the state's attorney's office keeps the red flag list, and we put it in our local database. So if we enter a name, it'll show if they have a history of violent behavior, and especially domestic violence related, or in particular. Also know with orders, sometimes they can be granted with non-abusive contact. So some orders, especially with custody, it may be that a respondent can communicate with their children on some levels, but the contact is non-abusive. So some are no contact at all, don't go to the school, and then some are just non-abusive contact.
Thanks, Sharon. Okay, I think that's all the questions that I had. Were there things that you guys wanted to add to this conversation, and any other tidbits that you guys had on protective orders?
I have a few things. I would like to clarify, peace orders never have a surrender of firearms, just in case that happened to get, you know, was maybe gray. Peace orders, the courts never require surrender of firearms. It's only the protective and the extreme risk orders. And peace orders expire, finals expire after 6 months. Protective orders, if someone does have a final, if a final is issued, excuse me, and the petitioner at the end of that, say it's for a year, I've seen them for 3 months, just enough time for someone maybe to move out of a house or out of the area or something. But whatever the expiration date is, if you know that you want it extended because maybe the person has been violating it, make sure you go to the court is early enough in advance that they can actually have time within prior to 30 days if possible, or around there, so they can fit it in. So it can get extended without a lapse, without the petitioner having to file again. That's something important to know. And I did put in the chat, here's the link for Maryland courts. Regarding the electronic filing, authorization is required. The court must be contacted for login information. But when you click on there on the right-hand side, it does have that information. Also, anyone on this call, look at that website. It has videos It's an amazing website. It has domestic violence videos that walk you through the process, links for brochures and the court help information. It's just a great plethora of information, as well as the People's Law Library, a great resource. There's a link to that as well. And I encourage anyone to check that out. There's a lot of great information in there. And remember, you don't have to go through this alone. There's a lot of resources and people that want to share your options with you, and ultimately you decide, meet you where you're at, and you make that decision.
Thanks for that, Sharon. I definitely wanted to make sure that people know that they're not alone in any of these processes. There's plenty of people and plenty of nonprofits and plenty of organizations that can walk you through the process. So if you find yourself in need for one of these, or you know someone who's in need for them, you know, you really you have options out there. You don't have to file by yourself. You don't have to kind of, you know, go through all the legalese and paperwork and try to figure it out. You know, there's organizations that can help you on your journey. Okay, so anything you guys want to add before we sign off here? No? Okay. So thank you guys so much for being with me today. I hope that you've learned some information today that, you know, maybe you don't need it all. Great. Maybe you know someone that needs it. Maybe someone you know someone that you know, you never really know who you're helping by sharing information, which is why we do these. We're not sure who we're helping. We're just trying to share education on rights and resources that are available. These great organizations are out there. If you feel the need, you know, Sharon is over in Calvert. Delaine is right there in Largo, right off the Beltway. So both are super easy to get to. And then Carl, I'm sure he's always got an open inbox and phone, always looking to help. You know, there are so many resources out there. If we can help you here, you know, we're happy to send you to another resource that can help you more than we can. Again, Maryland Crime Victims, we do the criminal side. So if it's domestic violence, but with a sexual, with a criminal component, we're here to help. Sexual assault, we're here to help. Any of those things, homicide, you know, any crimes, we're here to help. But on the criminal side, and we, you know, our big thing is just providing the legal resources, whereas other organizations really, you know, like Delaine, she's got the housing and she's got all the things, and you know, ties everything up all nice. But in court, you know, we're your folks to kind of help you. But resources are available. So those are there. There's also a lunch and learn if you find yourself that you're in a domestic violence situation. We did a lunch and learn last year that is also on our YouTube. So if you want to find out more information on the differences of criminal and civil charges when it comes to domestic violence and where you can go for help and what you should do, please check out that video and then share what you need. Okay, that's all that I have. I guess you guys get to leave me 9 minutes early back into your day. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you all.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for the invite. Appreciate it.
I have
Bye-bye.
one last thing.
Okay.
I put joinonelove.org in the chat. It's an amazing organization this is a prevention type website based out of Baltimore, Maryland, the result of Yardley Love's death when she was murdered by an intimate partner, ex-boyfriend. And they have from elementary, middle, high school, educational tools for teachers, parents. It's an amazing website. Check it out.
Okay. Thanks so much. And I went ahead and shared that on our Facebook feed as well. So thank you all so much. And I hope to see you all very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.